Join me while I make some soil blocks for fall vegetables. I'm going to show you what I do and how it doesn't have to be super precise. Start with a potting mix or a soil mix, and I'm trying out this Biovast living soil from SD Microbes. Always sift whatever you're using first, just in case there's some really large chunks of wood fines or perlite in it. I like to add green sand, which contains minerals and helps bind the soil blocks together, but this is not a must. Some people will disagree with me. That's okay. I've just made a lot of soil blocks without using this that have done fine also, but now that I've discovered it, I do like to use it. And the third ingredient I typically use in my soil blocks is Pittmoss, which is made from recycled paper, and it helps add some bulk to the soil blocks. Again, not necessary. I have made soil blocks using just a really good potting or soil mix once I've sifted it. While I take a coffee break, let's talk proportions. The potting mix or soil makes up the largest proportion. I like a 4-to-1 ratio, so if I'm doing 4 large scoops of the potting mix, then I'm gonna do 1 large scoop of the Pittmoss. The green sand is just like a 1/4 cup or a sprinkle, kind of no matter what I'm doing. I always mix it up before I add the water. It does make a difference. And then again, sorry, but the water is no specific amount. This is something you learn as you go. I start with a lot of water. I know that I can always add more water. And if I've added too much, I can also sift some more of the potting mix or soil that I'm using to help soak up that extra water. I could tell just by looking it needed some more water, but I will also squeeze some in my hand. I want water to squeeze out when I squeeze it, and I've learned exactly the feel that I want. Once I get the mix exactly the way I want it, I'm gonna start filling the soil blocker, and this one is a Swiftblocker Mini 27. It can make 27 soil blocks all at once. It's important, no matter what type of soil blocker you're using, to make sure that those individual cells are filled well and packed in there. I have noticed with the Swiftblocker, it's a fine line between packing that mixture in well enough that the blocks maintain their stability and packing it in too much. One time I packed them in so dense that the roots actually had a hard time growing in the blocks, and that is the opposite of what we are going for. I'm using a shallow 10-20 tray for these soil blocks, but they actually make trays that fit these Mini 27s perfectly. I just already have these and didn't see the need to buy another piece of equipment. I'm gonna do one more pass of adding a little bit more soil on top and scraping it down just to make sure that all the cells are completely filled. The top of the Swiftblocker has dibbles, so I'm going to lightly press it on the top, which will create divots in the tops of the soil blocks, which is where I'm going to sow my seeds. Today, I'm starting more spinach for the fall garden, and I'll just place 1 seed in every soil block in the divot that the dibbles created. I like to sift a little bit of the potting mix or the soil on top of the seeds that I just placed on the soil blocks. I just think it helps press them down and helps the roots take hold. I also like to add a very thin layer of fine vermiculite on the tops of the soil blocks. This will help retain moisture until the seeds germinate. Now it's time to press the blocks out. This is oh so satisfying. And instead of pressing down, you're actually going to take your fingers and pull the bottom part of the Swiftblocker up. I actually meant to take the dibbles off the top part of the Swiftblocker before I press these soil blocks out, so I'm just gonna take a little extra vermiculite and fill in the holes. I'm doing a second batch of soil blocks, and again, I'm lightly pressing down just to let the dibbles create some divots in the surface of the soil blocks, which is where I will put the seeds. This time I'm experimenting with swamp milkweed and trying to germinate it without cold stratifying it first. Topping up the soil blocks with a little bit of sifted potting mix or soil just to cover the seeds before I press them out. Now, before I press this set of blocks out, I'm going to remove the dibbles from the top part of the soil blocker. I'm also putting a very thin layer of fine vermiculite on top of these soil blocks before I press them out to retain moisture before they germinate. You don't have to put vermiculite on before you press the blocks out, but it does help with keeping the channels, meaning the spaces between the blocks, clear so that when you water, the water can reach all the blocks more easily. All right, here comes the good part. These trays will get a humidity dome and go under lights on the grow racks in my garage. Don't they look good? Here is a tray of broccoli rabe, and it has already germinated. Until the seeds germinate, I spray the tops of the blocks with water, but once they germinate, then I'm going to pour water in the tray and bottom water.